Imagine for a moment that you are in northern France in the summer of 1944. The air is heavy with the smell of gunpowder and the heat of scorched metal from advancing tanks. You look toward the horizon and see an American armored division moving forward, 30 tons of solid steel, the roar of engines, dust rising into the sky. On the other side, German command falls into panic. Entire divisions are mobilized. Heavy artillery is positioned. Thousands of men prepare to intercept the advance. But as the sun begins to set and the fog slowly settles over the countryside, something impossible happens. That massive army, stretching for miles along the road, simply vanishes. There are no track marks left behind. No diesel fumes in the air. Only the absolute silence of an empty forest. This is where the history we learned in school begins to fracture. For decades, World War II was remembered as a contest of brute force. Whoever had the biggest guns or the thickest armor would win. But hidden under Pentagon secrecy for decades, there existed a unit that didn't fight with bullets. They were artists, painters from New York, architects from Chicago, designers and illustrators who, just weeks earlier, held brushes and charcoal instead of rifles. Young men suddenly placed on the front lines with a mission that bordered on insanity, deceive the most ruthless generals in the world, using nothing but rubber, speakers, and imagination. They were officially known as the 23rd Headquarters Special Troops. But history would give them another name, the Ghost Army. Their selection didn't follow traditional military standards. They weren't looking for the strongest soldiers, but the most creative minds. Men with exceptional attention to detail, capable of recreating reality so convincingly that the enemy would never question what they saw. When they arrived in Europe shortly after D-Day, the atmosphere felt surreal. While other units unloaded ammunition and artillery, they unloaded crates of neoprene, air compressors, paint kits, and sound equipment. It looked less like a combat deployment and more like a traveling theater company. But their stage was war. They engineered what they called the 42-pound Sherman. From a distance, through enemy binoculars, it looked exactly like a real tank, perfect proportions, realistic textures, accurate markings. But up close, it was inflatable rubber. There are whispered accounts of soldiers being seen by French civilians lifting an entire tank with their bare hands to reposition it. The disbelief on their faces mirrored exactly what the deception was meant to cause. But visuals alone weren't enough. The Germans were meticulous observers. If tanks were present, they expected to hear them. So the Ghost Army built soundscapes of war. Using massive loudspeakers mounted on trucks, they projected the metallic grinding of tank tracks, shouted commands, engine roars, and bridge construction, sounds so authentic they could be heard up to 20 miles away. It was an army you could hear, but never touch. German reconnaissance units watched from distant hills. Through binoculars, everything looked real, convincing, threatening, and they believed every lie. As the war progressed, their performances became more dangerous. Deception moved beyond inflatable vehicles. It entered the realm of human acting. Imagine sitting in a small cafe in a recently liberated French village. You're wearing the insignia of a powerful division that is actually stationed 100 miles away. You know enemy spies are listening. Your mission is to talk loudly, casually, to leak false attack plans while pretending to be drunk. It was theater, where failure meant execution. They lived double lives. Even fellow American soldiers often didn't know their true role. At times, they became targets of friendly fire or real enemy artillery, because on paper, they were positioned as the main force. There was a quiet melancholy to their mission. They watched real combat units suffer devastating losses, while they held lines with inflatable armor. Each fake tank destroyed by enemy fire meant a real tank survived somewhere else. In the winter of 1944, the illusion nearly collapsed. Freezing temperatures cracked the rubber decoys. Air compressors malfunctioned. They operated just meters from enemy patrols, protected only by an illusion that was literally deflating in the cold. If discovered, the consequences would have been catastrophic. Thousands of lives depended on the enemy continuing to believe the lie. And if they succeeded, no one could ever know. They would return home unable to speak of what they had done, unable to explain their heroism to their families. Their bravery was classified, sealed behind government secrecy. The climax of their mission came in March 1945. Operation Viersen. Allied forces needed to cross the Rhine River, the last great natural barrier protecting the heart of Germany. It was considered one of the most dangerous operations of the war. To protect the real crossing, the Ghost Army staged their largest deception yet. They deployed hundreds of inflatable vehicles, projected massive battlefield soundscapes, and transmitted fake radio communications simulating tens of thousands of troops. They created an entire phantom army positioned miles from the real crossing point. German high command took the bait completely. Artillery, troops, and critical resources were redirected to attack the illusion. While they fired at ghosts, the real Allied forces crossed the Rhine with minimal resistance. Historians estimate that single deception saved up to 30,000 American lives. When the war ended, the records were sealed. The artists returned home. Many resumed their creative careers, carrying the secret in silence for decades. Only late in their lives did recognition finally arrive. The surviving members, now elderly, were awarded one of the nation's highest honors, acknowledgement that their creativity had altered the course of war. Their story revealed something profound. Victory does not always belong to the loudest guns or the strongest armies. Sometimes, it belongs to those who understand perception, illusion, and the psychology of their enemy. They fought with art instead of bullets, and in the end, it was art that brought them home.